So what is your name and what do you do?
My name is Kortney Potter, and I am a mom, wife, and caregiver.
Where are you originally from?
Marion.
Born and raised?
Yes.
Okay, tell us a little bit about how you were raised in your family.
I was raised in a separate home. My background for growing up is really complicated. Long story short, I was raised mostly by my grandma, but I did go back and forth between mom and grandma.
So you can go ahead and go in a little more in depth with that if you want.
Yeah. So growing up, I had a dad who was my brother's dad. In the end, I found out he was my half brother, and this was actually my adoptive dad. I think I found out when I was 12 that I was adopted by him. And the whole time, my real father was probably 2 miles away. And I grew up with my grandma as an aunt.
So your real father never really came around when you were a kid?
Nope, he knew about me, knew exactly where I was. And when everything came out and knew that I knew about him, didn't change.
So how did you find out that you were adopted by the dad that you thought was your dad?
I was probably 9 when my cousin came out and made a joke. And my uncle had made a comment as well about him not being my dad. And I actually found my original birth certificate with a different last name and a different dad on there.
So what about your mom in all this?
She just kind of told me the truth somewhat when I asked her about it, but my grandma's the one who kind of told me everything, and she's the one that took me to my aunt's house that was actually my grandma's.
So your mom was married to the dad that adopted you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So what about your family now? You have kids?
I do. I have 3 biological kids, and then I have a 15-year-old stepson.
Okay. And are you married?
Yes.
What are some things that you guys like to do?
We are very sports oriented. Between the 4, we're always busy. Summers pretty much are baseball, softball, soccer, football. You name it, my kids are probably trying it or already playing it.
So going back to your biological father, does he come around to see your kids at all now or anything like that?
No, I could pass him on the street and he wouldn't look at me.
How do you think that affected you after you found out that your biological father was so close but he never came around?
Honestly, at first, it didn't really faze me because at that time I had a father figure, which isn't my brother's dad that I'm referring to. It was another, after she got divorced, she had another relationship. So that didn't really bother me. And as I got older though, and kind of realized like, I don't have a dad. I don't have someone to say, hey, this is my dad. I didn't have someone to walk me down an aisle, like things like that had never crossed my mind before. I think I was probably 27 before it hit me. But I'm like, okay, he really wanted nothing to do with me. Yeah. And we did a monster mash. And he was in front of us with his great-granddaughter.
Wow.
From his other kids. And didn't even look my way.
So does he have a role in his other kids' life?
Yes.
And have you explained any of this to your children?
No.
Do you plan on ever letting them know about it? You don't think it's necessary at all?
No, because he has never made an effort with me. And I don't ever see him attempting to even, he wouldn't know my kids if they were right behind him during a monster mash.
So give us a little more insight about what you do career-wise on a daily basis.
I'm a caregiver. I take care of kids ranging from newborn. The general age for babysitting, caregiving is probably 7. So Monday through Friday, I handle kids on top of handling mine. And help them learn before they go to preschool. So that's pretty much what I do.
You enjoy doing that?
Yes, I took a break from healthcare, and it's definitely what I needed. I went from helping the elderly to helping the younger generation.
So I think it's safe to say you were just meant to help people, period.
Yeah, I feel like I was.
What do you think throughout your life gave you the want or the need to be a caregiver?
I grew up with my grandma, and she was constantly always helping someone. And I just feel like watching her help people and see how everyone was so grateful for her doing those things. She would make big Thanksgiving dinners, and she would pass it out at the AMVETS or the 584. She was always making meals and anything for anybody. She, even to this day, would give anybody the shirt off her back. And as she got older, her friends would need help, and just seeing how it was hard to find people to help the elderly. So that's when I started doing home health and all of that, and I got certified. And then when COVID hit, help was hard to find. So I stepped up a lot during COVID, and I experienced a lot of loss during COVID. So that's when I took almost 8 months of not working. And also my daughter was diagnosed with diabetes at the start of COVID. So then I took a break. I got back into caregiving, and I experienced another loss, and I'm like, I don't know how much more I can handle this. So then I just kind of switched gears. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back to work. And I did go back to work, and I started helping in the schools. That was a challenge in itself, dealing with, again, some of the mental capacities of children that people don't know about. But then being a working mom with a diabetic, I constantly was having to leave work. Finding a sitter for 3 kids, let alone a diabetic kid, is hard. So I put myself out there, and I said, hey, I've had time. I've worked with kids. I've worked with the elderly. I can handle pretty much anything thrown at me. I'm going to help with kids. So now I help parents with kids. I try to be very fair. Definitely try to be flexible with everything, because I know how hard it is. And it's working. It's working for us.
Talk about some struggles that you've had to endure or that you deal with today.
Parenting, trying to work as a full-time mom. I have help from my husband, but other than that, it's just me doing it. I get help from my grandma, but she's up in age, so you can't really push that too far. But yeah, the struggles that I deal with is parenting and trying to work, and then my daughter is type 1 diabetic. So that throws in another wrench of chaos to our daily.
So there's a lot of people that rely on you on a daily basis.
Yeah.
How expensive is the insulin for your daughter?
1 pen for the month can range depending on the brand that the doctor calls in, or insurance wants to help. Without insurance, insulin can range between $300 to $600 a pen. With insurance, I think the lowest we've paid is $120 a pen, and that's just insulin. That doesn't include the needles, the lancets, the test strips, the ketone strips, the emergency glucagon. And there's a lot of supplies for just one body. And not only is she my type 1 diabetic, my husband is diabetic as well.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So how much insulin do they take in a given amount of time?
My daughter, so if she has a super sugary breakfast, she will take probably 9 units, versus my husband, he's been diabetic for 10 plus years. He could take 20 to 30, and that's with him in his weight loss. Before, when he was larger, he would take 30 to 40 units just for a meal.
So kind of give us a perspective, because I know you said for a pen, you gave us a cost per pen. How many of those would they go through in a week or a month?
So the pens are 100 milliliters. So at my husband's biggest, he would go through probably 2 or 3 pens a month. With Gracie and her still only taking between 5 to 10 units per meal and snack, 1 pen is usually good. But that also doesn't include like birthday parties and celebrations and the extra snacks that she wants, or if she's just hungry. Like, she can't eat anything without getting that shot.
So is it safe to say that it's thousands of dollars extra on top of what you already have going on to take care of the diabetes?
Yeah.
So that definitely throws in an extra obstacle that you have to deal with, aside from taking care of a bunch of people.
Yes, it definitely does.
So is there anything else that you can think of on a daily basis or on your past that you've had to deal with that maybe the average person wouldn't have to deal with?
I think nowadays my situation is almost common. You have one parent or no parents. And at 30 years old, I don't speak to either of my parents. So I feel like as an adult and being 30 with 4 kids, having nobody is the biggest struggle. And not only do I advocate for type 1 diabetes, it's also mental health. Because I help my daughter along her journey. Also, I have my own journey of my own mental health. So all of that combined is just our lovely chaos.
So can you give us like a rundown of a daily routine that you guys have, what you have to do with your daughter being diabetic, things that she can't do that other kids might do that she has to do differently?
So any other typical family, kids, they can get up, they can get ready for school, eat their breakfast, go out the door. Just in breakfast, hey, check your finger, make sure your finger poke is accurate with your Dexcom. That way, for the rest of the day, we don't have to worry about if her Dexcom is accurate. She can't eat something without getting a shot. She has to see where her sugar is, and then we have to calculate the carbs and the sugars and proteins and all of that. And she has to stop what she's doing and do the math before she can do anything else. And other kids, even at birthday parties, they're grabbing a cupcake, they're grabbing handfuls of candy, and they're going. My daughter don't have that option. She has to get a shot before anything. So when it comes to lunch, dinner, her going to a friend's house, that's our biggest struggle right now because she's 10. I'm overbearing, and I know I am, but just her going to a friend's house, I have to make sure her phone is charged, her Dexcom is on accurately, and I can see her sugar. If she's too high, then I have to contact the parent if I can't get a hold of her, because if she's playing, to get a high correction. So I'm constantly monitoring everything she does. If it's too hot, she could drop. But in the same sense, if she's too hot, her adrenaline gets going, say in a sport, and she could go sky high. Diabetes it's no pattern. It's whatever your body decides to do.
So what would happen if she went too low or too high?
So if she goes too low, which for her, she gets shaky around 80. And for someone who doesn't have diabetes, the normal range is 80 to 100. For her, she gets the feeling, she starts shaking, and if she doesn't eat a fast acting and she starts to drop, if she hits about 40, from 40 and below, she could pass out. And then we're going to the hospital. She could go into a coma and then have to be on a insulin drip.
Having to be aware of all that and being a caregiver for all these different people, as a mother, how do you deal with the stress of all that? What do you do to relieve some of your stress?
I go to the gym. Go to the gym or I sleep. If I don't have time or if I'm just completely exhausted from caring for all these kids or anything, I will look at my husband and I tell I'm tapped. I tap out, I'm tired. And he'll tell me like, hey, this is what time it is, go to the gym. Or you look really tired, go take a nap. He's like, I got it. So the gym or I sleep it off.
So have you had any scares with the insulin stuff with your husband or your child?
Yeah. So Gracie, she's went into DKA a couple times.
What is that?
DKA is ketoacidosis for a regular working pancreas person. You can go into ketoacidosis for weight loss or anything like that. For a diabetic, your body is shutting down. If she gets a common cold or COVID or anything, she has like a little stick that she can pee on, and it'll tell us if she has, trace to large ketones. And that pretty much, the bigger they are, the more insulin, the more we have to just push it because your body needs insulin. Without insulin, you shut down. And when she does do that and we can't get it under control, it's a hospital trip. And we've had 2 or 3 of those since she's been diagnosed. But yeah, ketoacidosis, DKA, your body shuts down, your liver, everything it struggles to keep going. So their biggest thing is hydration, insulin, and move your body. So that's ours. My husband, he's type 2, which is completely different. So he doesn't experience the DKA as much as she does. But with him, he deals with dropping sugars a lot. And he gets to the point, he's sweaty, he's shaky, and he has to, I know at one point he didn't wake me up or he didn't have the energy to roll over. He just knew he had to get to the kitchen. So he had to crawl to the kitchen and he didn't wake anybody up. So that was that. I actually woke up and walked into the kitchen and he's just kind of sitting there, just mindlessly eating because he knows he has to eat. Yeah. And my daughter does the same thing. Usually with her Dexcom, her alarm goes off and he's finally now on a Dexcom, so he doesn't have that many episodes. But with Gracie, we'll go in and say, hey, you need to eat this. And she's like, huh? So we're shoving food in her mouth.
Being a mother and having to care for so many different people, what would you say to other mothers out there that are in similar situations that just feel overwhelmed and they find it hard to get motivation to carry on with what they're doing?
Speak up. Speak up and reach out for help. I don't care if it's a mindless Facebook post saying that you're tired or, this is what's going on. Just say it out loud so somebody hears it somewhere. Because you never know if Susan down the road that you have on Facebook is dealing with the same thing. And if you post it, she's going to say, oh, I'm not alone either. And then you get your own little community of people that you can talk to. And that's what happened with me. Everyone's always like, well, you post a lot and, you talk about this. Yes. And I've come to find out that I am not alone. I have found so many other diabetic parents and diabetic wives and husbands that if I have a question and I know that they've dealt with this, I don't have to call my doctor. Because if you're a diabetic parent or even a diabetic patient yourself, at the end of the day, the doctor's not gonna help. Yeah. They pretty much tell you how to keep yourself alive and push you on. So,
why did you decide to come share your story with us today?
I feel like sometimes me posting on Facebook isn't enough to let people know. And I know that with this video and your platforms, it can reach a lot more people. And everybody can know that they're not alone. Diabetes, working, being a mom, being a parent in general, all of that is just, everybody needs to know they're not alone. So I think that's the biggest reason.